All right. I've been sitting this in my brain for the past few days. So we just gonna put it out there right now. Let's talk about She-Hulk. Okay, for somebody that was born in the 80s but a teen in the 90s, I watched a lot of Ally McBeal. I pretty much watched every episode of Ally McBeal that I could watch, and that kind of reintroduced me to Robert Downey Jr. when he was going through his whole good guy thing. Like, he was actually going through his good guy promotion, and it worked, to be honest with you. He was actually, I think, a love interest of Callista Flockhart, her character Ally McBeal on the show. I liked every bit of it. This is what She-Hulk is trying to be. It's trying to be Ally McBeal minus the good 90s cheese. It's just cringy at moments. Now, it has a lot of potential to be great, but lately Marvel shows have been great, then good, then in the middle it's like, okay, this is pretty great. Then it ends on a really, really crappy note. Like, I'm sorry, not many Marvel shows on Disney Plus lately has ended on a great note. They just haven't. They ended in crap. And when it comes to She-Hulk, I don't really know what to think about it, to be honest with you, because the origin story of She-Hulk annoyed me more than anything else. The fact, number one, y'all know, for those who have watched this channel, you guys know I do not like drama for the sake of drama. I don't like drama in order to make the entire plot happen. They gotta throw something out there just to make it work. That's what they did here. You had a Chitauri spaceship land somewhere in front of a Jeep to make Jennifer Walters swerve off the road and crash. You put a spaceship in front of the Jeep to make her crash. Why? Why? And please, do not make any references to Planet Hulk, because they've already screwed that up with Thor Ragnarok. But anyway, when it came to the fact that they crashed, and yeah, the fact that Jennifer pulled him out is also the one thing that bothered me. The thing, and people like, well, you know, a woman can save a man. It's not even that, because the origin story of Jennifer Walters becoming She-Hulk had a lot of weight on it, because Bruce Banner making a split decision of saving his cousin's life after a trial gone bad had to do with blood transfusion instantly to save her life, knowing what it was going to happen to her. That was the most noble thing I could ever think of. And I actually have seen that comic strip. It's the most noble thing I could ever see. And honestly, it has more weight. It would have made more sense to do it here. You're telling me that he's going to have an inhibitor that is not well covered up, showing out of his arm, after he made somehow off screen, and this is, I'm going to mention this a little bit later, off screen, that he actually created an inhibitor to split him and Hulk up. And then all of a sudden, not even covered, it breaks. And somehow he bleeds in her wound. What? Like, why? Like, that's not even the least bit plausible. It doesn't make any sense to do that. It doesn't make any sense to do that at all. But yet, it makes sense in this world. It makes sense with this type of picture. And yeah, it's a femme piece. I'm not a big fan of femme pieces. Now, it's not because of the fact it's a piece full of feminism. And yes, they are trying to make She-Hulk a feminist icon. I don't know why. Stop doing that. Okay. But anyway, I'm not going to go into that rant because it's going to make this entire thing an hour. But anyway, the thing is, when it came to the origin story, it has so much weight because it showed how much he loved his cousin, that where he was going to use his own blood, no matter how dangerous it was, to save her life. Now you got Bruce Banner bleeding on her, and then somehow she ends up becoming the Hulk. Oh gosh. That alone just made me just irritated throughout the whole picture. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my best to try to not slam this thing because of how stupid the origin story is. But what was even more cringy, and yes, there were some cringy moments up in here. The cringiest moment that I ever saw was the whole bathroom scene when you got a bunch of drag queens coming in there. I'm sorry. Whether they were women, not women, I don't know. But the fact is, they look like drag queens. And they roll up in there and say, oh my gosh, you look like you've been hurt. You shouldn't have to deal with him. What are they gonna do? No, not call the police for her. Oh no, not make sure she's okay and sit her down and check for her wounds and try to get someone to come in and bring some first aid. Oh no, not any of that. They're gonna put makeup on her and put some ugly ratchet jacket, or that jacket just looks awful. It looked like it looked like it just rolled around in the dumpster for like the past few days. It looked hideous. But not just that. They just gonna put makeup on her, dress her up, fix her hair. If she looked like she has been abused, why in the world are you gonna give her a makeover? Not call the police? Not try to get her some help? Not try to call somebody to find if she has a cousin or whatever? Nah, they're gonna give her a whole makeup scene. Why? That was just dumb. That was just dumb in itself. And then, of course, you have the Captain Marvel scene. I'm going to call it the Captain Marvel scene because Captain Marvel was so ridiculously cringy to me because no guy acts like this in real time. They probably did 30 years ago, but who does this? It is like a ridiculous cartoonish caricature of what they think men really are. You don't see men come up there, oh, hey, sugar, and just like catcalling. I mean, you'll probably go like some places of the South and they still do that, but that's like backwoods. But for crying out loud, nobody does that every day. And then all of a sudden she gets mad, turns into She-Hulk, and then all of a sudden Hulk takes her out. And I'm just like, okay. There are so many things that are off about this. And I'm just going to get into it right now. They have practically neutered and killed any type of credibility that Bruce Banner and the Hulk has. That's long gone. If we ever thought that the Hulk was going to get some type of notoriety and actually get some type of, dignity to his character, we can kiss that goodbye. Just like what they did to Thor. They neutered him and they actually neutered the Hulk. It's sad. It's sad what they have done to the Hulk over the years. He was a very intimidating, very respectful creature, and then they just destroyed him. Especially here. You got Smart Hulk instead of Professor Hulk. And the thing is, the one thing that bugged me the most about the inhibitor scene is mainly because of the fact that Endgame, even though this was always done off screen with him, he never had a true arc. Ever had a true arc. His arcs were done off camera. We never saw any growth with Bruce Banner or the Hulk at all. Betty Ross is nowhere to be found, even though she was in the first two Hulk movies. I know Ang Lee's movie is no longer canon, or never canon, and then also Incredible Hulk, which should be canon, is not canon. And somehow Betty Ross was in What If, like a cartoon version of her, but she's not in the MCU. And then you end up replacing her with Natasha, which makes no sense at all. Thanks, Joss Whedon. But anyhow, the fact is, everything that man has gone through, he tried to kill himself but couldn't because the Hulk wouldn't let him. He was abused by his father. Well, his character was abused by a parental figure. I don't know how to phrase that, but you guys know his whole origin story with his parents. It didn't go well. He had his girlfriend's father, who was actually in the military, the U.S. military, trying to kill him because of who he is. He has gone through a lot of crap mentally, and then having to fight another person that he has never met, and then somehow coming to terms with who they are, and then coming together to become Professor Hulk. We never saw that on screen. The same thing here. She's sitting here berating him like, I have to do it all the time. Because of all the cat calls, because of all the inept men telling me how to do my job. And then I can literally walk out and be murdered. I hate to break it to your sister, but there are more people that I see on TikTok and on YouTube and on whatever social media clip you can find, that these little women that weigh $1.25 are going after 300-pound men with no fear whatsoever. And I know you guys have seen these clips before. They go after these men thinking they can take them down, and then if they go after them, what happens? A legion of other guys come in front of them to protect them like a wall. Women are more bold now than they've ever been in the last 60 years. And I'm just throwing out the whole number out there. I don't see women being that afraid anymore. Now, I'm not saying that none of this is true. I'm not going to say that none of this is true. But I see more women now more bold than ever than them cowering and being afraid. They're not like that anymore. What year is this supposed to be in? Seriously. And then with her having inept men telling her how to do her job, yeah, I hate to break it to you, but that's with every job you go to. And then you of all people, and Jen Walters, and I don't really know much about the She-Hulk, but I do know she's a beloved character with a lot of people who are fans of hers. And maybe her personality is somewhat similar to the ones in the comics. I have no idea, but all I can say is I'm tired of the Hulk being downgraded, belittled, humiliated. He was actually telling them the truth, telling them straight up facts. Being a Hulk is incredibly dangerous. You gotta know how to control it. She knew how to control it instantly. And yeah, I get it. In the comics, that's how she was able to do it. But the fact she was able to throw a boulder farther than him, do yoga better than him, concentrate better than him, have nobody in her head to be fighting him. There was no empathy. There was no connection there until the very end. And the CGI fight, as fun as it looked, it just looked a bit janky because the CG is off. We know this. But I think the worst scene of the entire series, of the entire first episode, was, Titania? And the fact that she just busted in the courtroom. She was slap fighting the guards in the back of if you honestly take a look at the picture, you will see her slap fighting the guards. She's supposed to be a very large woman, practically the most, and this is what I learned from Irvin. She was the most intimidating opponent that She-Hulk has ever had. Mind you, she actually did have an Infinity Stone in her head, but she nearly killed her. And her group nearly killed her. She was the strongest opponent she's ever had. She got knocked out in one punch. Not only that, the editing was a bit off because somehow she ended up having a bitch came out of nowhere. Then She-Hulk caught it, threw it right back at her. She fell before it even hit her. Then all of a sudden she did this really weird, this really weird flying kick. That was the most generic looking flying kick. I mean, I'm sorry. Chinese and even Japanese fighting films do it better. It looks so bad. She did this really janky side kick, and then she ended up hitting her only to get knocked into the wall. That's a great way to introduce a villain. A perfect way to introduce a villain. And then even more weird is that you're gonna play Eve's Who's That Girl. That was an introduction to Eve being in the forefront. It was all about Eve. It was nothing about Jennifer. It doesn't even talk about anybody else. That is the weirdest song to actually put at the end credits. And I know why they did it. They did it because that's the only song that everybody remembers because people are so in touch with the 90s now. But besides all that, it made more sense to use Madonna's Who's That Girl than actually use Eve's Who's That Girl. It made no sense. But then the most cringiest moment was the end credit scene, and it made no sense to have it as end credit. They go out of their way to try to find out whether or not Steve Rogers is a virgin. Then we end up finding out he wasn't one, and he ended up losing it to a USO girl on tour. Well, that takes away the whole thing about Peggy and the whole love story between those two, and that took everything away. That just destroyed it all, man. That made no sense to make that an end credit scene at all. And yeah, I'm not really going to be upset about the whole fourth wall breaks because from what I heard, she was the first to do the fourth wall break before Deadpool. So I'm like, okay, cool. Fine. I'm all right with that. But this show here, it has potential, but then it's not good. Like, it's not that good at all. I'm not digging the direction they're going to be going with Bruce, because from what I'm hearing, it's a passing of the torch, which means Bruce is probably going to die. More than likely. They're talking about bringing in the Red Hulk, but somehow I have a gut feeling that they're going to make this a whole diversity thing and kind of change the whole thing of the Red Hulk around. Please leave Planet Hulk alone. You've already destroyed that with Thor Ragnarok. Don't make any more Planet Hulk. Just let it die, please. But to be honest with you, this show has the potential to be good, but Marvel has never delivered on anything they came out with Disney Plus. With WandaVision, it started off great, but then in the middle it was like meh, and then it ended in a whimper. Don't get me started on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Don't get me started on Loki. Like, seriously, they have not been able to deliver with any of their shows from Marvel yet. It has been disappointment after disappointment. For this, I'm kind of expecting the same finish. And yeah, with Jen Walters, the thing is with her character is somewhat likable, but then somewhat not likable. And Tatiana Maslany was actually a great character, was a great casting call for her, because even if the character is unlikable, she can make it likable and also make it unlikable if she could. She's able to control the narrative on what character she plays, because I love Orphan Black. It's one of my favorite shows, so I know she's going to be able to make it work. But what they're doing to Bruce is a crime. There's so much interest, and so many things that happened in that character. Happened with that character with Planet Hulk, they ruined that. So many things that they should have done before the actual Avengers film, and even at the Avengers film, they did him right then, almost. But to be honest with you, they have practically neutered that character, and that's the one thing that hurts me the most. I would love to see a good dynamic with a strong character like a Hulk, and then another strong character like She-Hulk, and having them work together without one having to be downgraded or belittled or destroyed to uplift the other. You don't have to do that. Does anybody remember Wonder Woman? The first one? That one, they did it right. They did it right. It had a well-balanced plot with characters that actually work together, both men and women. How come they can't have that here? Why does everything gotta be feminist? Why does it have to be a femme icon? Just make her a good character. That's all that I ask. But with this, there is potential for it to be good, but my expectations are way low.